And it was on this day, April 8th of 2021, that I finished 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khalid. I don't know how to say his last name. I googled it once and I couldn't find it, but I'm pretty sure I misspelled it when I googled it, and I think that's what happened. But I'm gonna say Hosseini, but I'm definitely probably wrong there. Oh, this is a good book. It is a really good book. Oh, it's heart-wrenching. It is really heart-wrenching. A lot of it's predictable too, and I think that makes it worse because you see it coming. Ugh. So yeah. I read this book for school, but it was a book I was going to read outside of school anyway, kind of thing. I actually bought it on Kindle even though my dad already owned it, because I was, oops, it's too late now, but yeah, it's really good. So, it's a book about Afghanistan and the oppression of women. Oh, man. And that's, yeah, it's, oh man, it's a thing. It's, I'm getting stuck here. I kind of want to say something. My dad fought in the Afghanistani war, for the U.S. But, he was a part of, like, the Children's Minds and Hearts group. So, like, he would, like, go to different Afghanistani families and, like, share meals with them and go around and do, like, humanitarian efforts instead of the actual fighting. That's what my dad did. And actually have a bunch of souvenirs that Afghanis have made for me and stuff. But I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot, because I really don't. I know some of the history, but again, I'm over here from a U.S. bias standpoint, and we have horrible perspectives on things, to be honest. Anyway, because my dad was, like, deployed when I was growing up. This is from when I was like 4 to 8 years old-ish. He would always, like, talk about, like, what it's like over there, people not having meals and all of that. And then when I was youngish, I'm gonna say maybe like 9-ish, I watched so many refugee movies. I don't quite know why, but I watched a lot of dark movies and then a lot of refugee movies when I was young, which may or may not have shaped who I am. I don't know. But basically what I'm trying to say is, between those two things, I've always felt very guilty. Like, it'll come and go a lot. And it especially comes if I watch a movie or read a book that reminds me. And this is one of them. It reminds me of how... Look at this. I have this. I feel like I shouldn't. You know, it feels so skewed, our world. There's, like, people who have literally nothing right now. Like, even, I get that, like daily I'll complain about the problems of America and how stupid America is. I'm a little bit cynical. Just a little bit. I'm not saying I hate America, but America has problems. I'm pretty sure also most people probably say that their country has problems. But I think there's countries that people probably love their country. Surely. Somewhere. My friend likes Sweden. He lives in Sweden. So, you know, there's an example. But anyway, point is, I'm over here, like, complaining about first world problems. And that's the thing. We always talk about first world problems. But it always hurts when there's a reminder. This entire story, I would feel like cowering. I'm like, it's so unfair. It really is. I don't know if I've said this before, but in college or probably after college, it'll depend. College, I'm hoping, depends on COVID and all those things, to study abroad for a summer probably. I thought about studying abroad in South Africa, and I've thought about just doing somewhere in Europe. The dream place to study abroad, honestly, would be Argentina. I would freaking love to be in Chile or Argentina. It'd be amazing. But it's beside the point. I'm hoping to study abroad, and after that, after college, I want to at least join Engineers Without Borders or some similar group for at least some time. I mean, those, as far as I know, those like aren't paid things, and I'm gonna be right out of college, so that's gonna be my first priority, is not drowning in debt. But actually, I'm gonna be in debt. It's gonna be great. Student debt, woo. First world problems. Anyway, it's not only a first world problem though, just saying, but it's a thing here. America's kind of known for it, just a little bit. But if I can swing it at some point, do something humanitarian in my life, because I don't think I could keep going on for the years without not doing that. It'd feel pretty horrible. So, yeah, I'm me. But I'm also a selfish American who's blind to the world. And so, back to the book. Oh, it was really good. So there's two female main characters. And it takes a while for one of them to come in, but the story starts off, like right off the bat. This is semi-spoilers. Semi. I'm not actually doing details, but I'm summarizing. The story starts off with Miriam, who is one of the main characters. And she grows up being taught that men are, this is the wrong word, but I'm going to say evil. One of the lines is, like a compass, a man's finger will always land on a woman for blame, or something along those lines. And it gets repeated through the book. And, you know, right off the bat, it's a lot of, like, it's one character, not the main character, teaching the main character that, like, men are horrible and women don't have, like, place in Afghan lives and all that. And there's a lot of themes of women are always mistreated. Right off the bat. But then Miriam is hopeful and she's happy. She runs off and her first life disaster happens. And there's going to be a lot, believe you me. Her first life disaster happens, things happen, and she gets her first glimpse of men are bad. A man who should have given her more gave her away, basically. And then the man who got her was also a bad man. And he gets progressively worse. And there's a lot of hope and perseverance. And then it links back to the beginning with men are bad. And then what will happen is they'll switch to themes of women and their roles in society, where one perspective is the housewife who's being forced to stay at home and wear burqas anytime they leave the house, because that is how women are meant to be, kind of thing. Never supposed to leave, only husbands can see them, all that. And then the other perspective is women are studying and becoming doctors. And then the Afghanistan, well, not the Afghanistan war, but a lot of wars, one of the F-ton of wars begins. I think the Soviets were the second war. I don't remember what the first one was. I think the first one was like a coup, which people argue it's not a coup. I'm going to say coup because that's the word I know. First one was a coup, and then the Soviets came in, and then there's been like 18 wars since, and then the U.S. was like 9/11 and joined me. Anyway, this side with the women becoming doctors and stuff goes, and it's all about women's roles and the oppression of women, and just progressively as the country goes through more and more wars, just how low women were treated, if at all, ever, if they were even acknowledged. And that's the main theme of the book. That's what will continue through the book, is the oppression of women. Oh, and he does it good. He's really good at echoing things he said earlier. He's really good at making you see a bad thing coming, and you're just like, oh no, oh no, oh no, and then it happens, you're just like, ah! I'm a empathic person. I've said that before. There's times where I'm not, but a lot of the time I'm very empathic. So, this book, yeah, it hurt. I feel bad for the characters. I feel very bad for the characters. Anyway, you'll see bad things happening before they happen. And then there's times where he will make you see a bad thing coming, and you'll be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, something bad. Did they just die? Did they just... And then they're fine. He's also really good at that. The false build-up. And that almost tears your heart out as much as the first thing did. There's times where he'll fill you with hope, and the main characters with hope, and you'll be like, they'll do it, and then something bad happens. It's... Oh, man. I think this isn't an actual theme, but I think some people would say this. Some people in my class would say this. That there's almost an idea of life, you know? Like, life will never be what you predict or expect. I think that's... I'm not going to say American or first world. I'm just going to say in general. I think an idea... maybe an ideology, but not really. Something we just have implanted in our minds is that our life will go according to plan. You know? In all technicalities, a nuke could drop in America tomorrow. Like, that could happen. But all of us are like, it won't happen. Everything will be fine. The world's at peace. Whatever. You know, we have this, like, false illusion that it can predict our life and that nothing bad will happen and all that. I mean, you know, there's also just the straightforward of a car crash. I've talked to 2 mothers now where they've both got in car crashes where someone crashed into them and lost their kids. And that's just, like... a matter of like 5 minutes of their life, and they lost 2 of their kids. You know, it's understanding how easy things can be taken away. There's a quote, I'm sorry to quote a fan fiction, but it is a very meaningful quote. There's a quote in a fan fiction I once read that my friend sent me that said, in the end, I learned a lesson. And this is a character who's also been through a lot. You can work very hard to keep... Hold on. I want to get the exact quote. I actually have it bookmarked. Hold on. I'll be quick, I promise. I don't really have much time to talk anyway. You can work yourself to death to keep what you have, but if you don't have any power, then everything can be taken from you in a heartbeat. And I think that's true even without having power. I think just everything can be taken in a heartbeat. But the point I'm saying is a lot of us can lose something without really seeing it coming, and we always I don't know, plan and will go well. You know, a lot of people would never ever have thought COVID would be happening, and then it happened. And I think that's kind of a lot of what happened in 9/11. I was born after 9/11, to clarify, so I didn't grow up with that experience. But a lot of people say that they're like shocked, like it couldn't register at first because we can't foresee that happening in our lives. And even some people, I have this occasionally, and I know my dad does for sure, but have like daydreams of bad things happening. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, but I'll have moments where I'll zone out. It's like a day nightmare, but in a way, you spend the day nightmare figuring out what to do if it happened, kind of thing. Usually it ends horribly, but you like learn from your imagination depicting a horrible image. I don't know if anybody else has had that, but I know I have it. It's not very enjoyable. It's not. But even with that, like, it would blow my mind if something bad happened tomorrow. Like, it just can't register in my head. And these characters who are, like, didn't see this war coming, didn't see the bombs coming, didn't see the horrible relationship problems coming, or the beatings coming, or just anything. Like, even though they heard the bombs falling all around them, they still had that image of the bomb won't land on us. Ugh, and that is human nature, and it's probably a horrible survival instinct. We need to fix that, maybe. I don't think we can. But just having these characters have that same mentality, even though they're like facing death every single day. They see people being hanged, their hands cut off, their balls electrocuted or squished with pliers. I remember those lines. Those are two of the most memorable lines, you ask me. It's not great, but they still think that it won't go wrong. So that's another thing the author does super well, is he has that mentality sticks with them, and to the point that they can't anymore. But then they still persevere, and so I think there's another theme of perseverance throughout the book. And their perseverance is another one of those things that just, it doesn't warm the heart, and it doesn't make you feel dread. I mean, it does make you feel some dread, because you dread that something's going to go wrong, even though they're persevering through it. Another thing's going to go wrong. But just the power that these two women have in this book, sometimes it's hard to see, but it really shines like 1,000 suns in the end. It's, oh, God. Yeah. And I wholly believe that there's so many women out there, refugees or that still live in Afghanistan or anything, that had to face like all of this and had to fight through it and still just kept getting beaten and just kept going anyway. It's crazy. I mean, the book constantly talks about suicide and people who didn't face it, and that's another thing, and that's also not great to see or hear. But just a lot of perseverance in this book. I don't know if I have any critiques. I already said that he's good at echoing things. He did that. He's good at making you not like a character. Very good at contrast. Something I noticed that I really liked, and it's weird how it continues throughout the book too, is that the two characters at first are juxtapositions. Not juxtapositions, but they're foils, they're opposites, right? And then at one point they are the same, like one used to be the other kind of thing, but then they cross, you know, like they're at first like this, and then it's like this, and then this character, this is the first character, goes like this and goes flat down here. This character goes up and then comes down, and again we're continuing the same path. They'll come down to touch, and then they'll become together, and then they'll go together, and then they'll break again. Just the way those characters dance around each other, if you were to draw like their arcs, it's very interesting. Like they start opposites, and then they're together, and then they're opposites but in a different way, and then they team up, and then they're treated differently, and then their characterizations become different, but they're supporting the same goals. And it's just the dance those two characters have is also very, very well done, and I love it. In the end, it's really good. It's funny how there's a quote near the end of the book about how meaningless some things sounded now that the war happened, basically. Like how meaningless having face, you know, sounds now that they're after the war. And there's some parts of the book that seem so meaningless after all the bad things that have happened. It's like, I don't really want to give an example because of spoilers, but like, you know, some bullying or something happens and it gets overshadowed very quickly. It's like bullying becomes like the least of the problems in this book. And it's still a problem, but compared to everything else, you just forget it. And so there's some things at the beginning of the book that are forgettable, but, and I'm not going to say the beginning of the book, in part 2, not even part 1. Part 1 was set up the entire theme of men against the oppression of women. And it echoed well. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. I don't want to give spoilers. It's a really good book. It has 4 parts. The longest chapter is the second to last chapter. And it flies by, I promise. It's not a long book. Some people may think it's a long book, but it's not a long book. It's entirely worth it. It's really good. Eye-opening. I'm going to say now that if you do read it, I'm not going to say it, but I still really don't know much about what is happening anymore. This book goes up to what, like the 1990s, late 90s. I really have no idea what's happening in the world today, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on. This book kind of ends with a now Kabul has schools and stuff note, but it also has that echo of the Taliban or whichever group. There's a lot of groups. I don't want to get them wrong. The book said Taliban, so I'm just going to follow the book. The Taliban or somebody's going to come back to Kabul and start war again. And from what I know, that's what happened, but it's been like 20 years now. I have no idea what's happening in the world. Honestly, I'm still focused on America, which is a problem, but I don't really know how to address that. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that maybe I should know more about the world, and I'm not going to pretend like I know anything just because I read a book, is basically where I'm getting at, is that even my dad, who's, lived in Afghanistan for years and years and years, will say that he doesn't know what it's like. It's really hard to comprehend at times. And and I certainly can't. And so I'm not going to pretend like I understand what is going on. I somewhat wish I did, and obviously, dread what it'd be like to know, but that's the thing. To close off, the afterword of the book. Yes. The afterword of the book from the author ends with him saying the humanitarian efforts he's participated in, and it ends on something that I want to read. So, to help or simply learn more about the UNHCR, its work, or the plight of refugees in general, please visit www.unrefugees.org. Thank you, Khalid Husseini? I'm sorry. I know I'm mispronouncing that. I'm very sorry. January 31st, 2007. I figured that I would echo that because that's a really important thing, and I will visit that site. So, that's all I have to say. It's a really good book. Side note that has nothing to do with anything, and I don't want it to sound show-offy or anything. I was just surprised. But I knew a lot more of the Farsi words than I thought I would. Farsi, there's a little bit of, oh my god, what's the name of the language? There's a little bit of Urdu, which I recognize. There's only like one Urdu. What was the other language? I don't remember. But I knew a lot of the Farsi in the book already. Part of it is because I read a book from the 1400s that had Farsi in it. And I know that sounds weird, but I was kind of surprised how much of the language didn't change. But also, I'm only talking about like 8 words here. So, only 8 words. And then I also read another book recently that came out in the 80s? That had Farsi in it. So, that's all I knew Farsi from. I know a little bit of Dari from my dad, and I know 2 phrases in Urdu. And I know how to write them. I have no idea how to pronounce them, but I know how to write them. So, that's the extent of my languages, though. One day, I'm going to learn languages. I'm going to learn so many languages, okay? That'll be my free time when I get home from work. Languages. One day, I'll be at least bilingual, if not trilingual, or more lingual. I want to not just speak English. Please, I'll speak anything. I really will speak anything. I don't care. I don't care that my dad hates German with a soul. I'll go learn German. Also, I have no idea why he hates German. I think it's childish, but whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna learn languages one day. That was just a final note, was that I was surprised how many words I recognized. Alright. I'm gonna do homework now. Now it's 11:20 at night. Thank you. And I highly, highly recommend this book.